Yeah. So, yeah. Chetna and Gauri, are you guys also joining? But it's Chetna's message. So, yeah. Welcome everyone, and happy Guru Purnima. Thank you so much, Nilima, for hosting this. Yeah, truth and reconciliation work. I feel it's such precious work, yeah, to make room for at this time that we are in this world, to really look at what is truth and how do we navigate reconciliation, and especially the two aspects of leading and healing. Yeah, and so that's what really drew me, like, because the leading and healing part of, and the walking together of the leading and healing, and the embodiment of that, and that's what I would like to kind of maybe make room for us to see what is to re-story the words leading and healing, yeah, and to re-inform these two words, and to see what it really means, yeah, for us, and what does it, how does it move and show up in our body, because I feel that's the most important aspect of leading and healing, is the body itself. Yeah. So maybe before we even start, I just want to maybe invite us to just find our feet on the ground. Yeah, and just take a moment just to see where are we. Yeah, because I do feel a little disassociation right this moment, yeah, with all the people who signed up, and suddenly when you're here, I just feel that a little off center. So I just want to name it and give it a place, yeah, to just find my breath in that. So, and I invite you, wherever you are joining from, or whatever it is that you are sitting with this morning, as you find your feet on the ground, to just bring it into your breath and to include it. To include all that maybe feels a little apprehensive to be included, to even acknowledge that it's here with us. And to find a breath with that, and I'm inviting you, as you breathe in and exhale, to allow your breath to go all the way into your sit bones, into your pelvic. And breathe in and out from that point. Just getting to know your breath this morning as we are sitting together. Our very first companion on this journey of life is our breath. Just getting to know your breath, its depth today, its body, the quality of your breath. Is it full? Is it shallow? Does it feel short or long? Is it heavy or light? And the temperature of your breath this morning. So inviting us into the companionship of the breath. through the inhalation and the exhalation. And just noticing how long is this companionship of inhalation today? And how far can the exhalation go today? And inviting you into expanding and deepening this companionship as we are sitting together. And notice the body in this companionship. Just entering into a grounding practice. Where in our body does this companionship feel strong, grounded, comfortable? Where does this companionship of the breath feel absent, weak, uncomfortable, strained in the body? And notice as you become present to that, if there's any movement, like loosening of your shoulders or expansion of your chest, position shift, anything that allows us to really host this breath fully in this body. And to make more and more room for this breath. And whatever way this companionship is this morning, just include it, welcome it. And stay with it without wishing it to be any different. So just stay here with the breath in the body. I'm going to invite you into a very subtle awareness of the inhalation and exhalation. So as you inhale, just notice what happens in your body. Is your body arising, rising, ascending, or is it falling as you inhale? So just stay with the inhalation right now. And every time you inhale, just notice what happens to the body. The direction of the body as you inhale. And you can even take turns in noticing the upper part and the lower part. Above the navel, heart, chest, neck, head, and below the navel. Just with inhalation, which moves to inhalation, which is drawn by inhalation. So attention is with inhalation while exhalation is still happening. Yeah. And whenever you have gathered enough attention with the inhalation, I'm going to invite you now to just stay with the exhalation and allow the inhalation to just happen. So just notice with exhalation what happens to the body and the direction of the movement. And here I'm also going to invite you into a little exploration. Instead of exhaling from the nose, how would it be to gently part your lips and exhale from the mouth? So you breathe in through your nose and exhale through the mouth, and just notice, is there a difference as you exhale? And slowly, in your own time, I'm going to invite you just back into the awareness of the breath, the inhalation and the exhalation. And slowly finding your way into the outside, even as you come. You can become present to the skin, the fabric, and all parts of the skin that's in contact. Any smells, tastes in the mouth, any sounds. And slowly in your own time, emerging into sight. So inside and slowly into the outside. And as you slowly emerge out into sight, seeing, stay with the body, stay with the breath. What I'm going to invite you is just take a moment to gather your reflections of the exploration. And then we will come into speaking and sharing and going into our Polyvagal way of leading and healing. So maybe just take a moment to write down any insights around inhalation if you have, or any exhalation insights. Just make a note of it, and then you can even share them on the chat. And that's where we are going to begin our journey together. Thank you, Nilima. I'm just reading what you just wrote. Goodwill towards my breath and yes. So what I wanted before we even begin, I wanted to kind of just check with, Malinizia, Chetna, and Nilima. Megha is also here. Megha is joining us from Mauritius. And Chetna is joining from Bombay and Malini from Bangalore. And Nilima, where are you joining from?
I'm in Mumbai.
Ah, you're in Mumbai as well. Wonderful. Yeah, and I'm joining from Bangalore as well. Yeah. 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 And yeah, the breath as a companion, our first companion. And then comes the mother. Yeah, I feel. And so what I wanted to kind of know was, what is it that inhalation grounds and exhale. So yeah, thank you so much, Megan, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. A sense of urgency in exhalation. Yeah, I'm just making room for that. And to also acknowledge that it's in this moment, right? We all keep meeting the freshness of our breath every moment. It keeps changing. Yeah, and that's where I also want to make this move. You know, that leading and healing is not a standard, but it's a very dynamic movement in the here and now. So there is no template that can be followed in leading and healing. And it's working, and the change. And I saw the posts, some of the posts, Nilim, on the group about the war inside and the war outside, the mirroring of that. And I feel as humanity, we are in a place where we are really wondering, this leading and healing, how can it look like that includes everyone, includes the inner and the outer. And I feel it. And one of the things that I want to kind of also open and explore in this time that we have together, that there is no template for it. It has to be in the moment, what is sitting here with me, with you, and with us. And how do we work and move with that is here, that needs to be seen. And so one of my questions that I was looking at, what's the basic philosophy with which I want to even start this movement. So I'm just going to take a moment to also see what Malini has written. Yeah. Right. Yeah, so I'm hearing you, Malini, that as you breathe, it brings the mind back into the here and now, right? So what I'm also hearing is that our mind also has this nature of not being. So I feel when we are in the mind, we are really not healing and leading from here. We are leading and healing from a past knowing. So what is that healing and leading? Yeah. So there is, what a companion indeed. Yeah. And so I want us to just stay with this awareness of the breath. Yeah, while we are also together, also know that we are also staying aware of the breath. And I wanted to start with, my own arrival of this choosing of this topic of the polyvagal way of leading and healing. And I feel that when I'm consciously in the companion of my breath, I am leading and healing. I'm able to lead and heal in a way that is resourceful, healthy, and comfortable, not just for me, but it also becomes palpable for all those around me. Yeah. And one of the things also is that leading and healing, as have been really getting more deeper into trauma work and trauma awareness and trauma integration is that leading and healing is built into the nervous system, it's built into the human being human. So it's innate to every life. It is innate to, it's actually the right of every human being to experience this leading and healing of their own life. And in some ways, there is no one to follow. There is no following here. It's every human, just that evolutionary movement of being human itself, I feel, is a movement of leading. There's something in every one of us that knows to lead. So then if that has to be made available in our world reality, then what does leadership really look like? And then who is a leader becomes the question. Because many times in today, when I see leader, it also becomes about someone we are looking to and who we need to follow and who has the answers. And then what happens to the leading and following, leading and healing of every person. So this is something that I am really in my own knowing right now, where I'm coming, learning a new movement of how do I meet this leading and healing when I'm by myself, when I'm with another, and when I'm in a group. And as each one recovers their leading and healing, how do we move together? And how does one step into center and also step out into the circumference? So this movement is what I'm really inviting us in this exploration today. Yeah, and so first I wanted to even open up this knowing and to bring some voice and words in, and then also maybe do a little body activity, body-based activity to really locate that for us. And so I want to just pull in the group. You're such a small group, so it's just when I say polyvagal, what comes up for everyone? What is present? What words come up, or what is the understanding? And you can speak it, you can type it. All is all right. So then we begin there, right? So I kind of. Yeah. So what is polyvagal? What is that word?
Rekha?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
My voice is a little bit muffled. I'm down with the throat thing right now. But
Yeah.
for me, every time I hear polyvagal, it's like for me, feel like then I take the burden of my mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I feel, or rather I will experience every time. Even I say polyvagal to myself. I'm like,
It's like hearing an
yeah,
exhalation.
Yeah, and I enjoy it. I love it.
Thank you so much. So there's an exhalation.
We can't hear you, Rekha. Is it just me, or can the others hear you all right?
I couldn't hear either.
You can't hear me?
Yeah.
Is this better? Can you hear me now?
But there's an echo, a bit of an echo.
Right now?
Yeah, this is good.
It is better. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other insight or any other knowing on polyvagal way or polyvagal? What would that mean for you? So I'm not even asking what Stephen Porges says. I'm just seeing what is. Is there a knowing with that word, or I can, or maybe no, I can just begin by sharing.
So in my case, I was curious to join a session where I can learn more about the vagus nerve, because I see it's suddenly a very emergent topic.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to know what is the best work on it.
Yeah.
So I didn't hear the word polyvagal. I was just looking at the vagus nerve. And with my yoga background, all I know is your spine and your nervous system. As long as you can breathe up and down that, you just will have incredible gathering and coherence of all the parts of your being. Your body, breath, mind will just line up and, align.
Right.
So I was curious to hear from you, what is the process in the polyvagal way? That's why I joined today.
Okay, thank you so much, Nilima. That gives me, also a direction to, how to shape the conversation. So thank you so much for that. Yeah. So the vagus nerve and its role, right? And it's very true what you said, that the yoga philosophy and the yoga work itself, most of the practices are really they bring this calming. They stimulate the vagus nerve in a very powerful way that today we even have research to fully corroborate that. Yeah. And I'm seeing the chat. Okay, yeah. So it's a sense of response to my triggers and environment and how my nervous system senses this in response. Yeah. So thank you, Chetna. And Malini, do you have any words, even words that's you're curious about? Thank you. Yeah. And so the polyvagal word itself. Stephen Porges. So today this whole lot of this. The word vagus nerve is really shooting up. It's because of the work of Stephen Porges, Dr. Stephen Porges. I think since 1990s, his whole research has been on the vagus nerve and studying its tone. And what he discovered in his research is that our imperative for resilience and survival comes from the same place. So, and it is coded in us even as in childhood. So someone as an adult being very resilient has something to also do with the environment and the connections that shaped that person in childhood. Yeah. And that does not mean that if that environment that did not shape us, it shaped it into survival, it also means that we can learn. The hopefulness is that even in an adult movement, we can learn to shift this movement by bringing this awareness, by working with the vagal tone. So what does polyvagal theory say? Polyvagal theory consists of 3 parts. And one of the core philosophy on which it sits is that we are forever, like our nervous system and we as human beings are forever looking to be in connection. So social engagement and connection is the most important need of the human nervous system. Yeah. And that's what informs safety. So safety is not the absence of danger or threat, but safety is to know connection. Safety is to know, to be in social engagement is what informs safety. So wherever we are, even if we are with ourselves, we need to find that when we feel connected to who we are, our body being in our breath, being right here, then we feel even safe to be in this body, be here. Or when we move into a space or a workshop, or we meet family, or we meet anybody, our very initial instinct is we are looking for connection. We want to be engaged, to feel socially engaged. Yeah. And that is what makes us, that's what we're looking for. And when we don't find that, And that is not a conscious movement. That's what polyvagal theory is saying, that when this movement, the minute we sense unsafety, the autonomic nervous system kicks in and the movement is hierarchical. Yeah, so the very first tenet of polyvagal theory is hierarchy. Hierarchy means that safety and threat movement is hierarchical in the sense that, and that's where the vagus nerve, and this entire movement happens through the vagus nerve. Yeah, so our autonomic nervous system, which is forever, whose forever imperative is survival, is informed through 3 different pathways. Yeah, so the very first pathway, that is, it's usually mirrored to a ladder. So on the top of the ladder, when we feel safe and we can see all the view, and when we feel very connected, is the pathway of the ventral vagal pathway. That's when I look at you, when our eyes, our cheeks are relaxed, our throat can speak, we can hear, and we feel connection with another. So our face, actually, in polyvagal theory, our face mirrors our heart. We wear a heart on our face, right? So that's when we feel connection. And the minute we detect unsafety, and this unsafety detection is an unconscious movement that is happening 24/7, which is called as neuroception. It's an unconscious movement which is forever through sound. What we see, side view, it's forever assessing that we are safe. There is safety, there is no danger, and it's a very old survival movement. And the minute we are not able to connect, the very first, from the ladder, from the top of the ladder, we descend to doing something about it. Either we want to be able to walk away from there, that we cannot connect, or do something. So the very first survival movement is mobilization, which is connected to a sympathetic nervous system. That means our hands need to be able to move, our legs need to be able to move, so we can walk away from danger or walk away from anything that we feel unsafe. We can speak, so our throat can say what it needs to say. So to make this possible, what happens is our heart rate increases, blood is sent to our arms and our limbs, yeah, and we may feel fear. That's how we might even know that that's happening, and it all happens in an instant, yeah. And then we respond either, so it's called the fight or flight response. So we either fight, we can enter into fight or flight. So this is the mammalian response. So this is still a newer response. It's evolutionary connected to being a mammal, where we had limbs, we could jump, fly, we run away, move away from there. But if this response is not available, say you are at a conference, usually with an adult, this is more connected when we were children. And at adult, that's when the same thing is what starts kicking in. It's an old trauma, because as an adult, we have mobility, we can move, yeah. And so if we are not able to fight or flight, so if a sympathetic system is not able to respond, then there is a drop to the next level on the ladder, which is the dorsal vagal pathway, which is connected to the vagus nerve. So this is or the parasympathetic nervous system. So the dorsal vagal pathway, what does it do is that you can neither run, you can neither move or fight. So now you need to survive at whatever cost. So everything gets frozen. So immobilization kicks in. So all the energy, so sometimes you might even, so it's connected to a digestion. So it might empty things in the stomach. So you might feel this urge to pee or go to the toilet. So it's emptying. So it's making the body light, so it can just collapse, and it takes away blood. Blood is taken away from the arms and parts of the body. The heart rate goes really low, so you cannot no longer move. Yeah. So your senses are withdrawn. It's literally like a turtle going into the shell. So it's a reptilian movement. It's a reptilian way of survival, like a snake or so it's that kind of a survival, which is conserving all the energy, and we survive. So it creates a very deep freeze, numbness in our system. And to come back up into connection and safety, you have to take the same path. So from being frozen or being on the ventral vagal, dorsal vagal pathway, we have to again come back and find movement and then come back onto safety. So this is a very autonomic movement, and the way the brain development happens the other way around. So it's our dorsal brain, the brain stem. The lowest part of the brain is what we are born with. When we are born, our brain is literally empty. It only can do the basic functions of breathing and sleeping and digesting and feeling hungry or crying or looking. So it's that parasympathetic nervous system which is connected to the looking, seeing, and that's the vagus nerve. Yeah. And so if there we don't receive safety, if a baby doesn't receive that safety, it cannot fight or it cannot flee. So many times a very early threat can create this frozenness, which becomes part of our brain development. Right. And then the second level to come up in the brain is the limbic system, which is a sympathetic nervous system. When the baby starts crawling around, starts moving, start exploring, start saying no, start assessing boundaries, that's the sympathetic nervous system really standing up and, trying to find its movement. Yeah. And then, then comes that slowly as the brain is finding its way, then it comes the full movement of the ventral vagal. And today research really shows that 19 is no longer the adult. A mature adult is only possible after 24. That is when we have a fully developed brain. Yeah. So that's the polyvagal movement. And polyvagal movement, so first is this hierarchy. Yeah. So safety and survival is built into this hierarchy. And neuroception that means forever we are assessing safety and threat. It's built into our mechanism. So before we can consciously be aware, our body might just do things. It's like when somebody something comes hurling towards us, we move. It's an instinctual movement of protection, right? We might, things do like that. So that means something was already aware that some danger is coming, right? So this involuntary movement. And the third most important aspect of polyvagal is co-regulation. That means that co-regulation, it's in co-regulation of our caregivers is how we learn to be in self-regulation. So co-regulation precedes self-regulation. So as a leading when we are in this movement, right? So leading, though some of you shared it about grounding, leading, to lead is a movement ahead. It's actually the sympathetic nervous system. It's that movement, not the fight flight, but when the sympathetic system is completely at rest, then we are able to kind of get up. For leading, if you're looking at it, for leading, you need to be able to stand, right? So you need to be able to stand and move in some ways. Yeah. So even if you have a handicap and you can't move, still the leading movement, is the inhalation. The life has to come in. Life. It's about life, and healing is a very healing. So healing is connected to the parasympathetic. So the parasympathetic movement really has to be rested. So that means our gut has to be calm. Yeah. And we have to be able to be engaged. Yeah. And in that way, right? So without healing, you cannot really lead. So like when I remember Megha wrote that, the grounding. So that's why the grounding and exhalation needs to birth the leading. Then when in that safety and finding. So when the we know we are safe when the sympathetic, so this area of our body feels really relaxed, and our hands feel like they can move. Yeah, and they know whom to move towards, when to withdraw. It's like the two security guards at the door. They know when to act, but they are not active. Yeah, so they're relaxed but alert. And the digestion, the dorsal vagal system of the parasympathetic nerve of our gut is relaxed. So gut doesn't have butterflies in the stomach, or we, and the heart rate is the exhalation. So the exhalation is really huge in the polyvagal theory, and that the parasympathetic nerve has to be, our life force needs to be leaning a little bit more towards the parasympathetic nervous system. Then we are really able to live our life. Yeah. So so that's the polyvagal way. When I say, so then the question comes is, how does a polyvagal way of leading and healing really look like? Yeah. So even with what I have shared, I'm just, there's something I'm also learning, that we just pause and take a few breaths and just see where it settles in. Yeah. What opens up as we sit with this? What are the questions that emerge? And with this knowing, what is leading, opening up as for you, or healing opening up as for you?
I'm curious if there is just a simple diagram or even an animation that actually explains how beautifully this has now been discovered and structured from the inside, the levels you were mentioning, what kicks in first, the hierarchy, what happens next. Yeah. Is there any such resource link we can go to later and look up?
Oh, there are. I think right now the internet is flooded with polyvagal theory, polyvagal resources. So even if you just go on Google and put polyvagal theory, you'll find a lot of images, a lot of resources. Even on YouTube, there's so much of engagement in that. Yeah. And one of the things about polyvagal theory is also really the vagus nerve and the vagal tone. So it's the vagal tone that really helps us relax. So the more the vagal tone is, our ability to really enter into this ventral vagal way of social engagement improves. And what is the vagus nerve? So I feel all leaders, as leaders, we need to know, leaders and healers need to really know the vagus nerve as well. And, vagus nerve, it starts at the end of the brainstem. It goes down to the middle of the chest, yeah, right here. And then there are two branches. One goes down, which connects, it is connecting all the organs of the gut, the stomach, the kidneys, the intestine. So it's connecting everything here, the nodes from that nerve. And then the other goes up, so it goes into the throat, the ear, so the inner ear, our eyes, yeah, our facial muscles. Yeah, so sometimes we will find that we have these coping where we are just smiling and we are wondering, why am I smiling? Like, I don't want to smile, but it comes up. So we are trying. So something has kicked in. So that, so the vagus nerve is, we are forever moving up and down the vagus nerve. It is unavoidable. And the sympathetic nervous system is a completely different branch. It is really not connected to the vagus nerve. It's an independent branch. And I have someone joining, but I may not let them in because we are almost towards kind of 30 minutes, right? So yeah. Yeah, so the sympathetic nervous system is connected. So the vagus nerve is also what increases our heart rate. It's connected to our heart, our lungs, so our ability to breathe. So so many of our pranayams, they really increase the vagal tone, and it means that it allows us to relax all these parts. It relaxes our chest, our digestion, it improves that. So that means that we have more vagal tone. And what does vagal tone means? That our ability to come back into homeostasis is much faster. That means when there is trauma as in not something that's happening now, but something that happened long time ago, but the remnants are still in the system, and they inform our body to respond in a certain way based on what our survival, right? So the vagus nerve. So as we improve the vagal tone, the more we improve our vagal tone, we are able to come back. So sometimes for many, inhalation might be very anxious. And for some, just finding that exhalation becomes very difficult. So those are also indications at that moment to know that something has kicked in. So our inability to even exhale and find this exhalation of relaxation can also be connected with some freeze response that might be active right now. Yeah, or too much of activation is connected to our sympathetic system. So it's very important as when we are leading that we take this moment also to kind of calm ourselves, because the reason is that we cannot connect when we are in any kind of activation. If our stomach has something going on, and if our chest has some activation, then we are not connection. We cannot fully experience connection. Yeah. So when someone is feeling unsafe, there is something that is opening for them unconsciously, even through our nervous system. Sometimes it could be the tone of the voice. So I think when someone says they feel unsafe, how much of a safety we think we create in spaces of leading, it is very important to include and say, hey, what is happening for you? Right? And there's that means something about me. So we have to, so one of the ways that in Polyvagal, they always say is to always acknowledge the autonomic state that you are in and that someone else is in. The awareness of that is so very important, to acknowledge that, oh, so even as we are facilitating, or when we are in workshops, or when we are even participating, to really know our own state, and as an adult to know how to take responsibility for that, right? So that's something that I feel is very, very important for leading. So a healing has to precede leading. So one of the criteria of noticing, like, who am I, looking at? Is it Pied Piper of, who are going to take me down into the river? For that, then if we don't have our autonomic nervous system fully engaged, we do not know safety, right? So to be able to detect that is, who am I following or who am I looking up to, we also need to know our own nervous system, right? Where am I moving? And so I think it's so important, whether for this healing aspect of to become almost, I feel like, mandatory for, leader. Are you in this journey of healing your own self? Are you, and how? And one of the things that I heard from Thomas Hubel, that he always sees a good leader is one who can exhale, who has a long exhalation. So leading with exhalation. Yeah. And I think that is something I feel that's the polyvagal way of leading and healing, that I am becoming, I'm opening myself to that, and and that the one who is leading is a leader And the one who is healing is a healer. Not the one who has healed is a healer, or who heals is a healer, but the one who is healing is a healer, and the one who is leading is a leader. So in that sense, we need to create the space for everyone to really move into that leading and healing and leader and healer in them. Yeah, and I feel that that's the only way I feel change is at all possible, when we can heal our inner walls, right? So I'm just looking at time. So I have a body theme, a somatic body. If you all are interested, we can go there. I can take some questions now, and then maybe we'll do that activity.
So since you're going to do the activity, I had a question.
Yeah.
I noticed, since the focus is on the breath, when I'm doing an Om chant and an exhale as you're chanting, of course. So I find I run out of breath. And in today's call, I kind of wonder if it's linked to a trauma that I had as a kid. I must have been 8 or 9 years old. I was on a seesaw, and I fell, and my heart fell, hit the bricks.
Yeah.
And I remember being stunned, and I kind of went blue.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I forgot how to breathe.
Right.
And then finally, when I found my breath, it's because I was on an exhale. I was not on an inhale when I hit.
Yeah.
And so when I found my breath, it was the sense that, oh, the reason I can't inhale is because I haven't finished exhaling. And then I found my way to exhaling, and then I found my way to inhaling. And just on today's call, because we are discussing how trauma can impact our breathing and our nervous system, because something gets stuck, some memory is held. I'm wondering if that is perhaps what happens, which is why I can't exhale fully. I seem to run out of breath. It's like I just literally just peter out, knowing that there should be more on the other side of it. And can the practices in this polyvagal approach help release that trauma around the breath?
Yes, definitely. So one thing that I would like to also say is, when I say trauma, I'm really not talking about an event, right? So my question, if you're open, my question to you would be, when that happened to you, who co-regulated with you? You were 7 or 8 year old, right? Who supported you in co-regulation?
It was one of those childhood accidents. I remember my friends gathered around me. They didn't know what to do. Right. They called my mom. She came running, and I could just hear her voice saying, Chotu, Chotu, what's going on? And I don't know if she said breathe, but I think I said I can't breathe. It's interesting. That goes back to George Floyd, right? Wow. So, and just feeling supported in that moment by my mom and my friends.
Yeah.
It's almost as if they held space with their love for me to find my way back to my breath.
Yeah, right. So I just would you be okay to just take a moment with that? Just to
I'm processing even as I speak.
So just allow that breath now to fully acknowledge and receive that your mom and your friends held space for you. And we just release the breath, even right now, just to notice and just. Maybe there was a little bit, I don't know, just checking with that part of you. Was there a little bit more support she needed, that she couldn't completely exhale the breath? So now you can kind of hold that part of you and allow her to receive and that as well. So I see a smile on your face. Yeah. How was that? Thank you so much for, even now. Yeah.
It was so beautiful and necessary, this little return to a past event and kind of reconnecting the zit or the zap that happened.
Yeah.
It's like, it's almost as my higher self stepped in to say, I was always here in support and you separated out of shock, but
Right.
I was always there, and there was a moment of kind of reconnection with that and the release of that memory in a way. So,
Yeah. And you might find that your breath will automatically now be different. Yeah, so sometimes we need practices, sometimes just that completion, because in our natural breath of our wholeness, of our embodied sense, this movement, the breath can go, this companion can really take us far. In the inhalation and the exhalation, it's some trauma, like you mirrored it so beautifully that, your higher self, the wholeness, the awareness of that you, the whole you really holding. And I think that is the movement. And for some, it might be through learning some breathing practices, but unless even just doing a breathing practices doesn't really do that, unless this conscious awareness of this engagement, of this reconnection is so important, not just in the outside, but even in our own inside, to be mirrored, this connection. And many times it is also through another, right? Because our earliest need of that 7 or 8-year-old is co-regulation, is the other. Even when the awareness was there, that awareness only gets opened up in the mirroring of the other, of that wholeness. So when someone looks at us in a whole way and they say, hey, I'm here, breathe. I'm here, I'm not afraid, I'm calm. So first the parent has to calm themselves. And then they breathe, because if the parent is activated, the child cannot connect. Its autonomic is active, right? So when the parent is really calm in that wholeness, and when they breathe, the child also, that wholeness that you just experienced, your own wholeness, also becomes mirrored. So that's why co-regulation always precedes self-regulation. And is as children, we, even with the best parenting, sometimes parents are not, they're human beings, right? So it's not possible so as an adult, it is so important for us to be able to receive that co-regulation back, so that the parts of us can also receive that, and the whole this wakes up, hey, oh yeah, I was always here. That, so that part of us gets integrated into the whole. And then our breath is free. Right?
So can you say something about co-regulation in this polyvagal process? Does it require another person to be able to breathe with us and remind us to breathe in a polyvagal way? And then we can return and find our breath. Is that what the process involves?
So co-regulation is with another.
Okay.
Yeah. So what polyvagal is not saying that as an adult we need to co-regulate, but it is saying that co-regulation in our human life precedes self-regulation. So we are not fully able to self-regulate ourselves into homeostasis, like fully discover the breadth and expanse of our breath, if we have not been mirrored that in the early days of our life, if we did not receive that in co-regulation. And in the way that the world has been, unless we were in some remote African tribal village where doing did not inform the way of life, it was informed by just being, it's very difficult for a child to have really received that kind of wholeness mirrored back to them, right? So all of us might carry that absence of co-regulation. So for those parts of us are forever in some activation. Something can trigger an activation for that part. right? Either a sympathetic or a dorsal, right? Or a freezing. So how do we bring that part of us back into co-regulation? And what I've learned is, even if we have received a little bit of co-regulation in our childhood and we know this wholeness, we can go there, we can bring these parts consciously into regulation. Yeah. And so that's very powerful. So I feel co-regulation is very, very important for the human nervous system, even as an adult, to experience that, in social engagement, to be able to co-regulate, because that also makes us kind of experience connection. Yeah? So one of the activities that I wished I could have done if we had more people would have been a diet breakout, and just seeing this movement of co-regulation. But another one that I really wanted was, maybe we'll just take, is that all right with everyone, that we just, it's up to you. I mean, it's up to you. It's just, I'm open to whatever emerges and whatever the group is open to. This is just a very simple movement of standing up and sitting down. Because I feel even in that, when you stand up, there is a leading, because this way you cannot stand up. You have to lead in to stand up. And many times we don't even know to stand up. Yeah, in many of the chiropractor, the first thing they teach you is how to stand up, because we don't have balance when we stand up. So to stand up, leaning in, and to stand up, we will note that our feet have to be really present on the ground. Yeah, and where are we standing up from? So this is something I'm not going to give any hints, but I'm just going to invite all of us, if we can come to the edge of the chair such that we can find our feet on the ground, yeah, and just stay there. So you just notice your spine, your head, your shoulders are relaxed. Notice the positions of your hands, so that we are consciously making this movement of leading ahead, leading and standing up, yeah. So just notice that, and just stand up. So you can do that a few times just to notice, where is this movement coming from? Yeah, just notice this. And just noticing, how was that? Where is this lift? And now what I'm going to invite you is, maybe you already are doing it that way, to just become present to your sit bones. How do you rise from your sit bones? Not from your head. Your head is not pulling the spine. Yeah, but you are allowing the leaning in. The spine is straight, leaning in, and allowing this, this gentle movement up. The feet are strong on the ground, and you're pulled up. Now, so you can even imagine like a thread from the center of your head. It's kind of, in this way it's lifting you up. Yeah. So what does moving from our solar plexus really look like? Moving from our sit bones. So it's the spine just surrenders, and the head, the spine kind of lives, our knees are bent. So just becoming present to that movement. Our knees are bent, feet are solid on the ground, so we won't shake. There's a leaning in and a lifting from the pelvic, which pushes up us, and then we come back into a straight spine. So the head and neck, there is no movement at all actually. Even when we come back, it's moving ahead and we are just like this. So there is nothing, no movement in the neck. Yeah, so it's the pelvic that lifts up, comes back. Yeah, it stands up. Yeah, so this movement of leading, and you'll notice when you're able to exhale, and then through the inhalation, you can stand up. Yeah, you exhale and breathe in, it pulls up the system. Yeah. In the same way of sitting down, so if you stand up, Yeah, sitting down is coming into stillness. So when we are leading and standing up, we are entering into movement. Yeah, so it's a leading, yeah, into something. And then when we sit down, we are coming back into rest, into home. Yeah. And just noticing again as you stand. Again, if your movement is from the head or shoulders, coming back to the pelvic. Like this is the biggest part of our body, our hips, right? Our buttocks. Yeah. So just notice, what does it look like when your hips guide the movement? Yeah. Standing up. Bending our knees, and then a slight bend in the knees. The hip moves back. And then the entire spine just comes back. Yeah, and then we can come to stillness. So finding that gut. So again, when the gut is really calm, rested, this movement is possible. And your hands have no role to play. They can just hang by your side. Yeah, so just this movement of standing up and sitting down. So when you're sitting down, is there an exhalation as you sit down? Just noticing that. And even in our day-to-day lives, how does this leading into something and leading, healing back, retreating back, coming back home, getting into the world and coming back home. Inhaling and coming back home. And how does that look? Yeah, and when we are with someone, if you can even imagine a face in front of you, recognizing their own leading and healing, you know, that they are breathing. Or maybe somewhere if the breath is stuck, yeah, they're not able to breathe. Just you can see that. And how do you stay in your own leading and healing? And how does that regulate for them? Yeah. And there's an image that I wanted to share in our closing as we are moving towards that is, so I'm bringing a lot of my trauma work, systemic phenomenology work under this project that I'm calling the Ordinary Human Project. Just locating the feet of the ordinary human on earth. And so I created this logo for it, which is what I wanted to bring here and do some work with that as we close. Okay, so just, yeah, there it is. Just open this. I hope this image stays with you, if nothing else, if this image stays with you for today, yeah, as we close. So this image, you know, for me is such a powerful image of just holding all parts of us in that sense. And here is where I have, if you see here, there are few yoga postures here. Yeah, one is the mountain pose, yeah, and then there is the tree pose, and that really creates grounding, like a tree and a mountain, to really find the, so it's like an hourglass, right? We have strength here and we have strength here. So really in that, yeah, and any activation usually that we have is connected to child parts of us. And how do we really hold that part of us? And even though I haven't shown it, it's today we know it is, there are movements that we are taught that in somatic experiencing. One is if you put your hand right here. And what I am doing right now is a Ginseng Jitsu, which is a very old Japanese practice where this is wholeness. There's a point here, which is connected to the wholeness. So when you hold this like this, and when you just breathe, yeah, it really informs that. And you can even hold it here, like this movement, right? This movement, if you hold this here, there is a point here. which is the point really connected to our to the separation. This point, it's point 19 in Ginseng Jitsu. So just this breath you're holding here, like literally holding a survival responses to calm down. You can even shift it. You do it on the other side as well. And then the most important one, which I feel, is finding the bow. And on this day of Guru Purnima, thank you so much, Lima, for having this, starting this on Guru Purnima. You know, the bow down. And this chant that I have here is where I would like to kind of bring closure to our session, is Aho Aham Namo Mahyam. This is a shloka which was uttered by Janaka. Say Janaka, that I bow down to the greatness that permeates me, that holds me, the wholeness that permeates me. That is the truth, the magnificence of that wholeness I bow down to. And I think this journey is also really discovering that it's not just in me, it's in each one of us in this, on this planet, every life. And yeah, and that is great. The wholeness is great. And as a human being, I get to consciously behold that wholeness in the ordinariness of being human. So that's where I want to kind of pause our session today. And yeah, and just take a moment if there's a word or anything that comes for you. So namaste, really, bowing down to the wholeness in you. So so we have 7 minutes. So if there is anything that you're leaving with that you wish to share, you're more than welcome. You can even share it, because sometimes the chat doesn't come in the recording. So if there's any insight that you're sitting with, you're more than welcome. A word or gesture is all right.
I just want to really acknowledge you in how you summed up the closing, and may what the logo that you just displayed, I think from all of us as the participants, may we bless that this logo really go out and be this symbol of instant reminder to reconnect, you know, and it's almost as if you've given us the yoga in those 5 things, right? There is becoming the tree, then becoming the mountain, and then, you know, reconnecting with the inner child and making it feel safe, and then to bow down and to say, I bow to all parts of me, and Aho Aham Namo Mahayam, which is also I bow to my wholeness. It's like a complete, it's a complete yoga. That in that one symbol is reminding us, even if we take 2 minutes, 3 minutes, as every time we cite that symbol, to pause and to do those things that it's inviting us to do, we will return to the ability to heal and lead from there. So it's just so beautiful, Rekha.
Thank you so much, Nilima. So I'm receiving your words very, I feel a lot of softness in my heart. Yeah, a lot of love and gratitude in this moment. And
This could not be a more perfect session for the opening of the Truth and Reconciliation Week.
yeah,
Because you kind of begun by taking us to the very essential place from which any truth and reconciliation can happen until we can reconcile and heal this polyvagal, parts of ourselves. We're not going to be able to, no amount of cognitive work will get us there.
and may we awaken to that as human consciousness more and more. Yeah.